Before starting this brief paper on alchemical matter, let me spend a few words on what I'm referring to as alchemy here. A general history of alchemy includes at least 3 different traditions having very different characteristics and goals: Western, Indian, and Chinese alchemy. While both Chinese and Western tradition dealt with the production of gold from various ingredients, and especially from mercury, Chinese alchemy aimed to produce a drug, as in the Taoist tradition of Wei Dan, or a set of practices, as in Nei Dan, giving immortality to their user. In contrast, Western alchemy was a discipline focusing on the transmutation of gold and silver, and only from the 13th century, alchemy started to include prolongation of human life as one of its objectives. In particular, my field of expertise and the main topic of this presentation is Greco-Egyptian and Byzantine alchemy, that is, the alchemical works written in Greek from the 1st century CE to the 15th century. As I said, the main goal of the Greek alchemists was the production of gold and silver from various substances and ingredients. This process implied a passage from one or more natural species to a different natural species, for example, from lead and mercury to gold. As Thanasis Rinotas has already pointed out yesterday, such processes of substantial change have major implications and pose some crucial problems from the perspective of natural philosophy. Although most Greek alchemists show only a marginal interest toward these problems, some of them address these topics by adopting and modifying notions of material substrate and natural change as developed by Greek natural philosophy. Today, I shall not discuss in detail all the positions found in the Greek alchemical corpus, but only present briefly 3 notions of material substrate elaborated in Greek alchemy. The first notion is the identification of the material substrate of alchemy with its ingredients. This position is less philosophically connoted than the next 2, but is also the most widely attested in Greek alchemy. According to Pseudo-Democritus, who is the first attested alchemist and wrote in the 1st century CE, as pharmacology finds its matter in the ingredients used to produce a specific drug, and the physician must study these ingredients and their properties in order to produce a beneficial medicine, so must the alchemist study the ingredients of their preparations in order to transmute successfully silver and gold. Accordingly, the term matter, in Greek eule, is frequently used by Greek alchemists in reference to the varying ingredients of the alchemical practice. We might say that these ingredients are the operative matter of alchemy. Zosimus of Panopolis, the most influential Greco-Egyptian alchemist who was active around the year 300 CE, expressed a range of different positions across his many works. Nonetheless, Zosimus frequently referred to a group of 4 metals called in Greek tetrasomia, as the material substrate of all metallic transmutations. These 4 metallic bodies are lead, tin, iron, and copper. Although Zosimus addressed many problems concerning the philosophical justification of alchemy, his treatment of the material substrate remained mainly grounded on the operative consideration of the discipline. Of course, I'm simplifying greatly in this presentation. For centuries, many Greek alchemists were writing commentaries on Zosimus and Pseudo-Democritus' works. In this context, a second notion of the material substrate of alchemical transmutation was introduced and greatly elaborated. This is the idea that alchemy can operate at the level of the 4 elements of the sublunary world, that is, fire, air, water, and earth. Alchemical transmutation is therefore possible because the physical substances are reduced to their elemental components, and the transformation of each element into another brings about the kind of alchemical change sought for by the alchemist. This position was shared by many authors, from Pelagius, who wrote just a few decades after Zosimus, to Pseudo-Olympiodorus of Alexandria in the 6th century. However, the idea of operating on the 4 elements as the material substrate of alchemy posed its own problems. how can the alchemist reduce the uniform bodies we can see and touch, such as lead and silver, to their elemental components? How can the alchemist direct the transformation of the four elements so precisely as to change a natural substance into another? Among many different answers to these questions, some authors frame these problems in terms of purification of the four elements and their condensation and rarefaction. Zosimus of Panoply had already introduced a fundamental distinction between the body and spirit, in Greek soma and pneuma, of the natural substances. As we can see that during the processes of sublimation and distillation, a vapor is separated from the ingredients, and this vapor can be used as an active and operative agent for alchemical operation. So is the spirit of the natural substances understood as an active and operative principle of alchemical change. While Zosimus' discussion of body and spirit seems primarily focused on the description of specific alchemical operations, later authors commenting on his works applied to various degrees these two concepts to the problem of elemental transformation. Taking Pseudo-Stephanus of Alexandria, who wrote in the 7th century, as an exemplary case, the purification processes carried out by the alchemists can reduce the four elements of the sublunary world into their common substrate, the matter of which everything is made of. The substrate of the four elements is described by Pseudo-Stephanus as an incorporeal yet material spirit, a celestial body, and a triangular surface. In this case, it will be necessary to refer to Plato's Timaeus, but we can discuss that later on if you're interested. It is the soul, or rather the vehicle of the souls of the physical substances, that is, of their essences and essential qualities. Pseudo-Stephanus further conceptualized this incorporeal substrate of all materiality as a divine substance within the world of nature, the divine parts making up the elements, a kind of matter that exceeds the common limitation of the material substrate made of the four elements and tends toward the qualifications of the immaterial and divine beings. In their consideration of the material substrate of the physical substances, some alchemists reflected on the roots of materiality and broadened their concept of purification of natural substances to include the ultimate substrate of nature. Basic principles of Aristotelian physics of the sublunary world, such as condensation and rarefaction, were explored to new extents in order to grasp also the origin and reciprocal transformations of the four elements. Moreover, the alchemists started from a consideration of a rich set of practical operations performed by them or read in their sources. Thus, when they accepted and modified, sometimes extensively, as we have just seen, the philosophical theories on the material substrate of all bodies, and especially metals, their speculation remained connected to the operative core of their discipline. Although today I cannot go beyond the Greek tradition, such tendencies can be found in alchemical authors and works closely related to the alchemical speculation, such as the Arabic Kitab Sir al-Khalika, that is the Book of the Secrets of Nature, ascribed to Balinas or Pseudo-Apollonius of Tyana, and the Latin Testamentum, falsely ascribed to Raymond Lull, just to mention two of the most relevant examples. During the Middle Ages, the progressive emergence of the alchemical idea of an elixir capable not only to transmute metals into silver and gold, but also cure diseases and lengthening human lifespan, compels a reflection on how alchemical ideals already present in China, at least since the 2nd century BCE, emerged progressively in the Western tradition. More in general, though, the overall scope and specific features of the interplay between theoretical and practical considerations of the natural world in the alchemical tradition is still a field open to study, and I think that it can benefit greatly by remaining open to suggestions and ideas coming from the wider possible context of the human reflection on the material world of nature and its roots. Thank you very much.